Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Jay the Hungry Gamer is back with another First Impressions crowdfunding preview. And that's a lot of words to say that this is a game that I have only played in its current version one time on Tabletop Simulator, though I did play it several times a bit over a year ago in a previous iteration. And I'm joined today by Skippy, the designer of Lunar Rush. And by the way, when you read the box, if you get your copy of Lunar Rush, it has actually said Skippy. It goes up at the end. You have to have some excitement with it. That's how it goes. So I'm joined by Skippy, designer of Lunar Rush, who has actually played this game a lot more than I have in a previous iteration. And so I thought I would have him on to kind of do this discussion with me. And the last little disclaimer I have to say is I am buddies with both of the designers, both Peter and Michael Kelly from One Stop Co-op Shop. So I may be nicer than I should be, or I may be a little bit meaner than I should be, as I do my best to be objective and probably lose all perspective in every way, shape, or form. So with all of those disclaimers out of the way, how you doing, skippers?
Doing fine, Will. I think there are two other disclaimers you may want to point out. One, I also know Mike Kelly. He is a friend of mine as well. I have not met the other co-designer, so I'm sure he's a good guy, but that part won't dissuade me. And right, people who listen to your channel or watch your channel should know that we are related. I've been around for your whole life.
Yeah, more's the pity for me, man.
It was a good 4 years before you came.
Yeah. So with all of that being said, so Steve, oh sorry, Skippy, why don't you? And I will say, I was very impressed that the So Very Wrong About Games, they recognize that you are, I believe, Lord Skipperino or something like that is what they called you.
There was also Skippy McSkipface or something like that
That's
came
pretty
out.
Skippy McSkips a lot, perhaps.
Something,
Uh,
yeah, it was something.
but anyhow, why don't you give us a brief overview? And I'm letting Skippy here do the brief overview because he's not loquacious. I'm loquacious. He'll get to the point. So give us a brief overview of what this game is all about.
All right, so in this
I guess
game,
I
you're
should tell everybody the game is called Flame and Fang by Michael Kelly and Peter Goosis.
hopefully that's in the title of the video, so they do that coming.
Probably not.
Probably not. All right. So in this game, you're taking on the role of dragons. This is a adventure campaign game with a deck building and action mechanic, action selection mechanic. So you'll take on a role of dragon. You'll have a deck of cards, and each turn you can play as many cards of one. Call it suit. They call it aspect, but each card is either one of three different aspects.
Yeah, there's like the fighting aspect.
There's
the
a fighting
travel
aspect,
and the blue one. What's the blue one?
The blue was the travel one. The green one was the gather, the hunting.
Right. The blue is the travel. The green is the hunting, gathering,
Yeah.
and then the red's the fighting. Right.
And so, actually, and I have played this game, the Keyforge, right? Anybody who's played Keyforge is a very similar mechanic where you pick the aspect you want to play, and you can play all the cards from that aspect, and you cannot play the other cards. So if you have your hand 6 cards, you have 2, 2, 2. It's a tough turn, but if you can play your cards, whittle your deck around, move it around, you can end up playing all 6 cards in one turn and have a massive turn. So there's that major aspect of the game. You're following a campaign, so you're being told to go here or do this or that. There's also resources you gather that help decrease the randomization of the game and give you some more control over events. Other than that, it's very.
As you mentioned, you were gathering the resource and these events as they're coming out. They're related to this little map that you have on the board, which are made from different tiles. Each tile is it's a mountains or forest and things like that. And so they're all kind of related to that. And you mentioned that you might be able to play all 6 cards in one round. The reason that matters is you are limited by time. There's event cards that are going to come out every round, and every round, everyone can play as many cards as they can, which comes back to that suits that aspect thing you were talking about.
I don't know where to go now.
Oh, I just wanted to. We just hadn't mentioned that there's a board.
Oh yeah, no, it's good.
it's just helping you gather it.
Absolutely. So you're working through the campaign. There are enemies will come out on the board for you to also either run from or defeat as you see fit. This is certainly not a clear the board kind of game, both because of the time aspect, which puts a lot of pressure. We definitely had the pressure at the time, but it's not always a kill these four things to move forward. In our initial game, each dragon had to essentially evolve four times, grow four times, and you could do that either by improving your deck, by killing a minion, by being at a certain location at the end of your turn. So it gave you a variety of different ways to advance to the final boss fight. The other thing is there's a additional mechanic that comes into the game after the board we played, where there's a again another mitigation for luck factor, magic, where you can take these magic tokens that give you guaranteed actions, but they also give you a curse, which later will come back to hurt you as you draw it into your deck.
Yeah, these curses as you're playing through, there are various things, but it might be you're poisoned or you have a toothache, whatever it
Which
may
is a
be.
big deal for a dragon.
That's true. That's true. I talk down about it, but when all you have are teeth and claws, it's a big deal. But they clog up your hand, one, a little bit, and also they do something bad to you every single turn unless you pick a specific aspect that correlates with it, which of course might not correlate with your hand.
Yeah.
So you have that choice of, do I want to take some damage this turn or whatever, or do I want to get rid of it and have a less effective round? So
The last thing I think we should say is it's co-op. You are working together as a group against the game, the story, if you will. And you there were times that we definitely picked suboptimal choices for ourselves to enable to help sure that we could protect someone else. And so there's that aspect also kicking in.
rough overview being said. So, what did you like about the game? I'll jump in first because I just made you do a lot of talking. So, the first thing that I particularly like, so people who have listened or watched enough knows that deck building is not my favorite genre, just in general. It's just not. There's a few that I like a lot, but one of the things that makes me like a deck builder more is if there's no money strategy. I hate money cards. One of the reasons why I like Battle for Greyport. There's no money card. You can't do a money strategy. And like that, in this one, you can't really do that either. You're picking stuff up off of the board that you're going to use. So there's a gathering strategy, but you're also able to use those resources to do something for you. For example, the coins let you change the suit of a card or the aspect of a card that you're playing, so you can use that. The meat lets you draw more, and so on and so on. So it actually becomes an interesting choice of, do I want to buy now? Do I want to save this meat for later? And then along with that, the other part of the buying cards is you have to play a grow card. And the grow card, for the most part, all it does is let you upgrade. But it's also this wild card in the sense that one of the things you can do with every single card, which is also kind of cool, is it has a base action on top, and then you can spend something. Maybe you take damage, maybe you spend a dragon stone, or you can take a card of the same aspect that you could play, discard it, and then you get a bonus action on the bottom, and these grow cards can act as a bonus action. So I actually really enjoy spend time buying cards that let me buy more cards, and I also like you have that choice to make of, do I want to do a bunch of basic actions or do I want to burn a bunch of my stuff so I can be a little more powerful later on? And along with that, they let you spend your actions in any order you want. I really really like that.
On a card, right?
Yeah,
You
on
can't,
a card.
right? Because you're only going to get to play one card at a time. So we can spend any actions on that card in any order. Which again, I agree. That's what gives you a lot of the action selection mechanic in this. But you do have to complete the whole card, or not complete the card, but be done with the card before you get to go to another card.
Yeah. So how about you? What's your first positive on the game?
Well, my first positive is there is a lot of good, meaningful choices, right? Whether I spend the resources I've gathered, whether I spend the cards I could play as a card or use them, or even if I have, let's say, three cards of the same aspect, the main action is generally associated with the aspect. So maybe if I've taken the move aspect this turn, the flight, the top of each three cards is move, which is great, but maybe I don't need to move three times. Now I'm trying to figure out, okay, which other one's going to let me do the action I need to do because someone's moved where I didn't think, or someone's in trouble from a fight or whatever. And so there's a lot of good choices in even which card do I discard, which card am I going to power up? Do I want to use this now? Do I want to use it later? So there's constantly good choices to make in a turn. And I do enjoy that it's not overwhelming because you've already limited yourself, or early in the turn you limit yourself to one kind of card. So now you have good action selection, but it's scoped down as opposed to looking at all 6 cards and all 12 options, the top and bottom, and so on.
Yeah, I the next thing for me that kind of really sticks out is it really is a cooperative game. And when we played through the tutorial at the end of the game, Michael Kelly was doing the demo for us. I showed him my deck at the end, and I was the crappiest fighter dragon you've ever seen. But up until that point, this big last fight, I was very useful. But then at the end of the game, I had to rely on Canadian Kev and you to finish killing this big warlord or whatever it was that we were fighting because I wasn't going to do it. It wasn't ever going to happen. Even if I had the perfect draw, I could do like 3 or 4 damage. Whereas the last turn when you killed it, Kevin, who was coming up next, he said he has a 6 damage turn coming. But I was able to build more of a support role. And because of that, we really had to cooperate, which I really like because so often these kinds of games, again, I'm going to keep talking about Battle for Greyport. One of the reasons I like that is you really have to work together to accomplish something. And I would assume in some of the later scenarios, a build more like I had would have been very useful for the final objective, whereas pure damage might not have been.
And I'll say this: the other thing is you were not you had done the pure damage to Turner so before, done a lot of it. So those were now pushed out of your hand. So you now were relying on those other aspects. Another 2 or 3 turns later, right? We would be out of our damage cards, and you might be pulling all that damage cards into your hands. So there was that. The other thing I like, and that came up in the last fight, is I was really low on health. Y'all had to come into the same square or hex and take the damage so I didn't die. Because if any one of us dies, game's over.
Yeah.
Uh, I also do like the life way they do the life. So each dragon has 4 life. They're 4 cards, but each of them has an aspect. And so when you take damage, you take that life card and you put it into your discard. So later it will come back into your hand, but now it's a sort of clogging your hand, and you have to pick the right aspect to play it out to regain your life. So you do have a healing mechanic built in, as I would imagine dragons can regenerate, but it's going to slow
I
your
mean, that's
hand down. You got
science.
to
I
wait
mean,
for.
that is science. It's
I,
dragon
I think
science.
so. I do think so.
Yeah, well, and you talk about that. I actually really like that, and I also like that it becomes an interesting choice you have to make because I had been hurt early on, and my life card came back up twice. I never put it back out as life because I kept using it to boost my
A different
action,
card.
which again becomes it was fine at that point in the game. But if this goes towards the end of the game, that becomes a really hard choice of do I want to push my luck here?
Yeah.
And I think that's really inspired. I like that one a lot.
The
Uh,
other thing I'll say is you mentioned push your luck, but in a lot of ways you don't, right? It's definitive damage that you're going to do to the enemies. It's definitive damage they're going to do to you, right? None of this is chuck a dice and oh maybe I'll take 4 this time. No, you know exactly what you're going to take, and so that allows you to plan around this, but it doesn't make it easy.
yeah, the only randomness that you're getting in the game is from what comes into your hand. You're getting randomness from what's going to come out into the market, but obviously you know what that is. But the only real bit of chance I think is from the event cards
Yes.
that you have. Because
And
it is story based, and so once you've played through that, I think it's 8 scenarios or 6 scenarios, you're going to know what's going to happen. But there is a lot of chance into the events, and so these events come out, and sometimes it was add another resource to a tile. Great. Sometimes it was here's another bad guy, or whatever it might be. So there that's the only place where you're going to get real chance.
well, and where the bad guys show up and
Right.
what they are, right? That is also random. So they show up and you do have a turn to react to them,
Mhm.
but it is random. And we were fortunate we were not in one of the hexes, but there was one hex that all of a sudden had 3 guys pop up in a turn. If you were in that hex, you can get away and only take 1 damage, regardless of how many bad guys are in that hex. But right, you may have been hoping not to take any damage, and all of a sudden the hex fills up and it'll be your turn. What do you do then? But back to the group. Group maybe has to come help
Yep.
because you can't just run away. They may have to come in to absorb some of that damage. So
Yeah, yeah, that's the bit of the push your luck type thing that I was referencing. So it's not a lot, but it could go bad because when those three guys showed up in the outpost, one of us was in the hex right below it. So obviously, just as easily could have been you were right there. Last kind of two things I want to highlight that I particularly enjoyed was the power of the card you're growing into. Now I didn't get it. I wanted it, but Canadian Kev got the Flame Strike card, where he was just burning things from a hex away, and it was just so cool. I wish I had that. I couldn't do any damage, but things like that, and Mike showed us some of the other cards, and just the way that you're able to grow, and then after each scenario, you get kind of one card that's going to go onto your deck. Which brings me to the other thing. This is not a deck builder. This is a deck management because anytime you get a new card, you got to throw one away. So you're always going to be cycling through at the same pace, which I always enjoy that as well.
The
But
other thing we should point out is there is one last mechanic we haven't talked about the cards, which is the prep area,
mhm,
right? So there you can whatever aspect you pick, you can choose to play at the end of your turn one card to the prep area, which will set aside out of your hand. Where then, if when you pick that aspect later, you can utilize any cards in prep area. So you can do that to a whittle your own hand, right? So let's say I decide, hey, this game I am going fight. The first couple turns I take the gather and the flight mechanic, I can just put all the cards there or one each turn into prep, decreasing the cards in my hand. So I'm going to draw those fight cards more, but also let you set up for a bigger turn later or something else. So they even with the card draw, they give you a mechanic to help carry you around.
yeah, yeah, I think that was pretty clever. And then the last thing that stuck out to me that I enjoyed was, and you alluded to this earlier, is it wasn't a kill everything. It was, I mean, if we had to kill everything, we were screwed because we got to this place that we were going on the map. We killed the bad guy, and we were done. And if it was one of those things, like if we turned around, our little dragons turned around and looked behind them, there's an army of things coming after us. But we had succeeded, and even to get there, it was not a kill. I mean, you could kill things. I got most of my leveling up done by killing things, whereas you and Kevin were getting it by growing. So I really, really like when a scenario game has things that are not just kill everything. I think that works really well. All right, you got anything else on your positive side?
Other thing I'll say on the positive side, which I find interesting, is the cards you acquire during the round, right? You don't keep those. You do return those back in. You go back to your base set, and then after each round, you do gain a very interesting and powerful card to go in. So you do kind of have this. I grow my deck, but I'm not stuck with that. I kind of reset, but then I still grow my deck for the next round. So there's that is unusual, I'll say, as far as I know. Usually, right as I grow my deck, I take that in the next round. So this has a grow during the round. So you can try something during the round or what's available to buy. Go one route, and then you're going to get that refresh. You're going to get a little bit more power. And I say a little bit, right? One card out of it was it 12 cards,
Something like
14 cards.
to 12 or 14, something like that.
Yeah, 12 or 14 card deck. So right, you're changing 1/12 of it, or 1/14 of it each end of each mission. So that's not insignificant change.
So, what are our quibbles with the game? And you brought me right into to mine right there. And I say this all the time. I wish each of the dragons was a little different to start the game.
And in the older version, they weren't different to start the game, but when they upgraded after each scenario, they each had different cards for them. So the red dragon maybe had more attack, and the blue dragon had more flight, and the green dragon had more gather. Whereas now, when you upgrade, we all get to pick from the same kind of card. So it doesn't matter if you're the red dragon or I'm the green dragon. Now our decks will diverge as we continue to improve them or change them, but it didn't matter you're the red and it didn't matter I'm the blue.
Yeah, yeah, and I like the idea that for the most part we're resetting our decks with some changes. It makes me think of a game like Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay, where every mission you start back at zero experience and you kind of grow. It's like a MOBA style game, right? You grow each time how you want, which I like that because you can react to the situation. But it made no difference if I was red or green or purple. Was it green? Red, purple,
We had
white.
red we were playing red, blue, and
Purple,
purple.
purple,
Right? There's also green uh, and black.
black. There we go. That's what. And I wish there was just something like I don't know. Even if it's a once per game pack, I don't know. But I always
Y-
wish that they're a little bit different. And along with that, now maybe it's going to come in the box, but you start the game, and this is not really a spoiler, and you hatch like That's how you start. You hatch, and so there's
You should have
no.
said spoiler alert, Will.
Oh yeah, yeah. The very first thing that you read in the game is you hatch. Uh, but so that they have no personality, they have no anything because they don't exist yet. And so I just wish that there was something to kind of give you some kind of vibe for even if it was fluff, but ability. Like so, they come out and well, one dragon is bigger than the others.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great.
Uh, and I'll say this right. This is a preview. They're going to Kickstarter. Hopefully, they take some feedback from the community. I would love again the player board. Easy enough that one sided player board has that because you do have a player board you're running with each dragon. You give a little bit of a right. Maybe one likes the meat more. Maybe one likes something. Right. That would be something interesting. The other thing I would throw to it is even if I don't have something to start,
Yeah, this should be a
maybe
vegetarian dragon and a whole new resource.
yeah. Don't do that too.
The poor dragon that's born without fangs, they're just all molars.
You're
Has to
awful.
eat leaves.
The but what I would say is right something on the board, like you said. So each game you start that way, and you have a little bit of a difference. The other thing is perhaps at certain in the scenarios that the black dragon gets to pick between these three black dragon cards only, and so those cards are different than what anyone else could have. So they are definitively going to be different. Um, right? You still can pick how you're going to be different, right? It's not I'm the red dragon, therefore I must be the fighting dragon or the flame dragon. But maybe you do have the best option to be the best flaming dragon if that's the route you want to go, because you may have picked a red dragon because that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
Right?
And then the only other real quibble that I have is I wish that, and I know why they did it because I asked Michael Kelly and he said the reason why they did it. But all the tiles are called Mountain One, Mountain Two, Forest One, Forest Two, Outpost. And the reason they did it is because if it's called, Skipperinoville, like you're looking around like what is that? And you're trying to find it. So there's a ease of play with the UI you have versus the verisimilitude of the moment. And I want my verisimilitude. I want to feel like a
Uh,
dragon. I want to know who I am. I want to know that I don't like Ettins because Ettins did something and it's in
right.
this genetic memory of dragons. And that's why I want to go
uh,
eat it.
I hear what you say. I'm going to counter a little bit because, right, I was just happened to be playing Brass Birmingham last night, and I do not know the English countryside well. And dang it, if I was not constantly lost trying to find the cities that I had on my card, because right, it's we weren't playing, Ticket to Ride USA, where I know where Chicago is versus New York City. So that is painful. I also with you in that right, Mountain One. Ugh, but because it's going to be different each time, right? You're not always going to have Mountain One up north or something. I also see where he's going. I think or hope that maybe they'll change it to a little bit of middle ground where instead of Mountain One, maybe it's the Blue Mountains or the Craggy Mountains. So it's not a name per se, but right, the mountains look more blue on the card. So when I pull, oh, this guy goes on the blue mountains. Oh, look, the mountains that are more blue are probably the blue mountains, and I can
Right.
put the
So
two
if you got like
together.
the craggy mountains, those are the ones that are like the
Exactly.
Rockies, not like the Appalachians.
Exactly. So maybe a little more art, but that way I kind of can balance the two because if it's the Skippy Mountains, okay, I don't know what that looks like, right? But if it's the Blue Mountains, it's probably the mountain card that has a lot of blue hue to it. I probably can find that, even though it's in a different place each and every time.
But yeah, I mean, overall, oh, did you have any other quibbles before I move on? I was ignoring you.
I don't have any other quibbles. I think I think some people may find the art just
It's fine.
fine.
It's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. It's not. Now, also, I will say we were playing on Tabletop Simulator, where the resolution when you kind of zoomed in, it would pixelate a little bit. But yeah, the art's fine. It all looks fine. It's no flamecraft dragons. Oh my
There's
god.
no flame craft
Which let
dragons.
me tell you, everybody, when I get my copy of this, I will be using my flamecraft minis because they're gonna have cool screen printed dragon minis or dragon meeples, which is great. But I'll be using my flamecraft dragons. I'm not
When I
gonna.
give them credit, right? They I asked, there's no deluxe or super deluxe or anything like that for standees or acrylic standees or anything like that, right? This game is meant to be at a lower price point,
Mhm.
make it more affordable, make it easier to get to the table.
I
And
think they
so,
said
right,
it's $49. That might even be after the shipping.
I think that was, I
'Cause,
think that was after shipping. I think they said $39 and a $10 shipping is what they're thinking.
yeah. Yeah, so it's
So,
it's either 49 or $59 to get it to your table, everybody.
yeah,
Obviously, we're recording this before the campaign is launched, so I can't look at that. But yeah, it's small. There's nothing. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be that big. So I like it. It
no,
should be easy to get to the
uh,
table. It did not take well. It's on Tabletop Simulator, but it does not seem like it's gonna take long to set up.
no,
So all of that,
no.
I'm with. Though
Uh,
hopefully there'll be some fun stretch goals of fancier cards or maybe acrylic
well,
tokens for the meats and stuff.
yeah, I mean, so anything like that would be neat. But I can appreciate them keeping the price down as things are now, right? It's things are expensive. It's tough.
Yeah, and I'm 100% behind. I was joking with them. I was like, "How come there's not a miniature for every bad guy?" Thank goodness there's not a miniature for every bad guy. Because you got table space and shipping
Yeah,
cost and
yeah.
shelf space, all of that. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing it, and I'll say I actually enjoyed it much more than I did when I played it a year and a half ago. I really enjoyed it, and I wish I'd gotten to play through some of the later on scenarios. I think it's very clever. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy this.
I think again, there's some things, right? This is the disadvantage of having played it a lot earlier. Is right? You're comparing to something that it's not now. But I would say the minor negative that they still may resolve, who knows? But the minor negative of the color dragon makes no difference. To the positives of what they've improved, I absolutely think they've improved several of the mechanics. I think the magic mechanic they did is much improved. I think having these curses as attacks that come out a lot more often, those are a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I didn't
So
mention
I
that,
think
but
that
I thought that's a very. It didn't happen to me. I avoided it because I'm the smart dragon, clearly. But I really like it. That choice you have to make of
yeah,
it's really easy to get rid of.
yeah,
Just got to do
yeah.
it.
You just got to pick that aspect. Yeah, so I like that, and again, the same core mechanics are all there, right? So when we're going through to teach, right? So that's all there. I absolutely enjoy it. It's something I can you can pick out a scenario and just play with someone who doesn't really know games because right you can play open handed, right? There's no problem with that. So you can carry someone who doesn't know how to play through a game and get them involved. You can play several in an evening if you wanted to go through a couple pages of the scenario or right get a quick game in and out. So I think all that's excellent. I personally and right not just because he's a friend but I absolutely intend to back this and get a copy of it. And I don't have the fancy meeples. I'll use some or the fancy miniatures that you have. I'll find some other fancy meeples to use or something.
That's right. Or use the ones in the box.
Maybe I haven't seen what they look at all, and they don't have examples of that on TTS, so we really have no idea the
Yeah,
size, what they look at all. So that will be a surprise to both of us to see what they look like.
yeah. So there you have it, everybody. You'll be able to get your own copy of Flame and Fanged. Just check out the description. There'll be a link to either the live Kickstarter or at least the landing page where you can get a reminder. And yeah, so if you're someone that is into deck builders, you're into cooperative deck builders, and you're like me and you freaking hate the money strategy, then this is one that I think is really worth checking out. I really, really enjoyed it. And if you don't like dragons, then don't back it. I guess that's the big takeaway. Do you
If
do
you
you
don't
like
like
dragons?
dragons, if you don't like dragons, I got to question you being in a board game hobby, right?
Yeah,
If,
that's pretty much like every third game.
yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
feel like Lunar Rush would have sold a million more copies if it was about a moon dragon.
You know, maybe that's one of the factions for the expansion. Dragons,
The moon dragon, the
moon
the moon
dragons,
is actually an egg and it
egg,
just cracks open, and
the
then
dragon comes out. Yeah,
yeah,
that
very
that
very
could
very
be that could be it.
yeah, very Doctor Who. But all right, everybody. But as always, everybody, If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. Make sure you check out Lunar Rush if you haven't. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.